Welcome back to today's episode of Unapologetic Living. I am really excited to have Veda Ray on the show today. Welcome, Veda.
It's so good to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am so what I found you. I guess the first conversation that I heard was probably with Alex Zek.
Mm,
And maybe were you did you also speak with Kelly Brogan?
yep. Yep.
Okay. And then yesterday, like just sort of like a refresher, like some of the things you were talking about, the lotus birth, but did you sovereign? Did you say free? What did you? Oh gosh. Anyway, yesterday it was the midwitch,
Oh, uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah.
and I listened to that in its entirety. And every time I listen to the conversation where you're involved, I am blown away with all the stuff I didn't know. And, my kids are 24 and 20 now. I was, um, that one was born at home, one was born with a certified nurse midwife across the river in Indiana because there was no such thing as well, they didn't allow certified nurse midwives to practice here in Louisville, Kentucky, which is just across
Mm,
the bridge. And so, and I was going for this all natural birth. I wanted to breastfeed. And then by chance I met these midwives. Oh, because I'd started within a traditional OB office. And then
mm,
these midwives happened to walk in. Kismet, here I am, 5 months pregnant. The OB/GYN basically said, no, we're not interested in you having a doula. We're not fans of natural childbirth. I was like, okay. But I didn't know I was 23 when I was pregnant, when I found I was pregnant with him. And all I knew is I wasn't having an epidural. My mom had three natural childbirths. She breastfed all three of us way back. Let's see, I'm 48. So I was born in 1978. And we both have scoliosis. And one of the big reasons I was choosing that at the time is because I do have a spinal fusion and
mm,
in L between L3, oh my goodness, not L3, T11 to L3. Yeah, L3, T11 to
mm,
L3. And so my mom's oncologist happened to tell her to tell me, you do not want an epidural because of your back.
mm. Oh,
And
wow.
so I was bound and determined not to have an epidural, and I was bound and determined to give birth and breastfeed, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then I had this just like hunch, and I know you talk about it. It's just that mother's instinct, and not necessarily, you don't always know why you're getting it, but I felt so uncomfortable about the vaccines. And I just had this, I mean, I guess I had this inkling. When I was a kid, there was a couple families in our church that had babies who ended up passing away from SIDS.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And I was just, you don't want to lose your baby. And I was,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, this seems like it goes with these vaccines you're talking about. It's the window of time from 2 months to 4 months when many of these babies pass. And I just didn't feel good about it. And I did acquiesce. I got the 2 month round with my son. He did actually have the hepatitis B. It was before I knew um, about the hepatitis B and the vitamin K shot that I can recall. Of course, it's 24 years ago. And the pediatrician looked at me and said, well, you won't be able to live in the world. You won't be able to take your baby to daycare if you want to go to the gym. He won't be able to go to school, all of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, okay, 24, newly 24. So I got that first round of 2 months shots. And in between 2 and 4 months, I was waiting tables at this little restaurant that I'd been working at, same place my water broke, the same place I pretty much found I was pregnant, and the same place my mother told me you can't get an epidural before I was pregnant, like 2 weeks before I found I was pregnant. And I was like, started meeting these people who were
Mm.
telling me who had children who were, vaccine um, damaged. That's not a good choice, right? Injured, vaccine
Injured.
injured. Yes, thank you. And two of the three had autism, and one nonverbal, you know, uh, autism. And so I was like, I don't, so I went to that pediatrician that afternoon after I met the third one. I'm like, okay, I'm getting the message. I hear you. I went to the pediatrician. I said, I want my records. I'm done. The same restaurant, a pediatrician literally walks in who is questioning the narrative and says, I will see you, right? I will
Wow.
see you. Now, if I were to go back, I might not even go to a pediatrician.
Right, but there's a journey that goes with everything of discovery, right?
Yeah. So, so tell me, share your story a little bit. Like, tell me who you are.
Oh my goodness. So loaded, so loaded. Yeah, my name's Veda. I've got two little boys. I've got one little one on the way. I'm about 30 weeks pregnant right now. Um, but my journey, my story, my story, I would say my background was just like very medical. I feel like I was very much one of those people that was just along the narrative. You know, I was born in a hospital. I was vaccinated. I was all the things. Yeah. Anyway, so when my journey kind of started shifting, mine actually started with my own like health crisis. I want to say when I started, uncovering truths about the medical system because I just outsourced my authority to every doc. Doctors were supposed to tell me what was wrong, and that's what I expected. And I just got sicker, sicker, sicker over time because I'd been on everything, Kate. And it's like no one ever thought, I started birth control when I was 15 for acne, um rounds of antibiotics, antidepressant, like you name it. None of those things could have been why my hormones were like so crazy. But anyway, long story short, that's kind of when I started discovering, okay, there's something to this like medical system. Eventually I was like, okay, I'm getting sicker and sicker. If I don't just take the reins myself, no one cares. Doctors are just making me sicker with all the medications they're throwing at me. So I was also told, I'll just kind of go down the road, kind of ultimately led to, they were like, you have a brain tumor. You can never have kids. If you do want to have kids, you'll have to, have major intervention from the medical, whatever. So that was kind of like where I was. Eventually I was like, you know what? Maybe my body actually is sick because it's been given all this crap. Maybe I just need to detox and let my body know, figure it out. That kind of led to a whole, I feel like, spiritual expansion when I started learning, oh my gosh, maybe my thoughts, my feelings, my beliefs, all of that were actually creating the physical realm, right? It's all connected in some sort of way. So I also grew up like very religious too. So that was kind of like a whole unraveling of what spirituality really meant to me, I guess I want to say. And then I surprised got pregnant. And at this point, I just like didn't know. I didn't know any other path other than the hospital because all my friends had births in the hospital. That was just, luckily, I did kind of uncover this, like the vaccine portion, because I actually, long story short, found out in my 20s as I started reading, inserts and ingredients. I actually realized that when I was 5, I was vaccine injured. I almost died of this disease they call ITP, which is idiopathic thrombocytopenia purpura. And idiopathic, it's funny, it means we have no idea what happens. But essentially, I was like just bleeding to death. I was bleeding. I get bloody noses. I bruised when I touched something. When I was 5, they didn't know what happened. So it was interesting when I was in my 20s, finally reading through these inserts. There it is, a side effect on the MMR vaccine. It was like, oh my gosh, like all these dots started connecting. So there were a few things that I knew. I had one friend that had she had midwives in a hospital. So I was like, okay, so that's kind of, as far as I knew, as like crunchy as it got, because I really didn't even know anyone that had like home births. That was like not in my sphere quite yet. So that's where I started. And then I just started feeling like sick about it. So, and I don't even want, like, I don't know how far down, like, how do I tell my story without, I'm trying to do the quick version. Long story short, ended up having this like beautiful out of birth system. This baby really started just showing me the way. I started realizing I don't know what I need, but show me what that means. So this baby guided me to this out of birth system. No vaccines, no tests, no, like literally no nothing, all the things, which was great. It's beautiful. Came to the birth certificate, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't like research this part, and I felt sick about that. But I ended up getting him a birth certificate. And fast forward, my second baby, I knew I wanted to have a free birth. Like that was like very clear. Free birth was the thing, but this baby kept coming through saying, I need to be born without a birth certificate too. So I got to spend my next pregnancy kind of learning what that meant. And so I've been able to have him without a birth certificate, without a social security number, still like get him a passport, still operate within society, really kind of figure out how that works and the truth about the system and how the system, I don't know, I don't know how to say this, profits off of us financially. I mean, our birth certificate actually is a financial instrument, is how they kind of start operating. That's kind of what was revealed. And so that's kind of been something that I've got to live. And then as I've started sharing this with other people, it's been actually almost shocking in a way of how many other people are feeling the same way. They're realizing what a birth certificate actually means, kind of the financial bondage, or I would say even more of like the energetic bondage that it's put us all under, the spell, and how all these babies that are coming through right now are really ushering in a new era of freedom. And they're asking their parents to be born this way outside the systems without the birth certificates and kind of what that means for the future of these babies. And I feel like the world where we're ushering and going. So that was a really long,
No,
long.
no, I mean, really, and I know yesterday when I was listening to that, I know you talked a little bit more in depth about some of the health issues that you were facing, and the hormonal, uh,
Mm-hmm.
just and with facial hair, and there was something
Everything.
else, and but um, no, I just think it's great. And like I said, it's like you know what you know and you know it, right? Like I'd done a little, like I'd done such just a small piece of just a little bit of research, right? And then after he was born, there were elements of my birth experience in the hospital with this doula, because I hired a doula, that I would still have changed. And I know that, right, in hindsight. Uh,
Mm.
so I decided to become a doula. So I went through the birth doula. I forget which organization, and uh,
The dawn.
yeah,
That's
don't.
kind
Yeah, I
of.
think
Mhm.
yeah. So I went through that, and that's when I started to. And I'd already done the circumcision, and so here I am listening to you. Like I've heard some of this. I follow and Dr. Andrew Kaufman. Like
Mhm.
right, but I hadn't thought
Mhm.
much about the birth certificate, and I surely had no idea they were actually selling placentas and foreskin. And I can
Mhm.
still remember I had Jenna McClellan on several oh it was like I've had her on twice, and that second episode was predominantly
Amazing.
about circumcision. Now mind
Yeah.
you, my son had moved home for a year to
Mhm.
live with me when he was 22 in between jobs, trying something new, and he was home for the entire conversation I had with her. He's like, I don't care what she says, he's glad that he's circumcised. Like, okay.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Now, with that being said, I also, do strongly believe that we are incredibly powerful beings. And that, in a sense, if he doesn't want to take that on as a trauma, I don't know, maybe he won't, right? I think that's how powerful we are.
Mhm.
It,
Mhm.
regardless, when I had the conversation, I can go back and I see the whole thing. I can remember it. I can remember the screams. They talked me into this procedure that's supposed to be safer, and I can't fucking believe I did it.
Mhm.
It just breaks, it just brings up, and so when you hear this and then know that they're exploiting us once again, right, with selling the foreskin and the placenta, and they also obviously took the placenta then either. I didn't think any, I just, I hadn't gotten that far. I knew there were
Yeah.
things I wanted and I wanted to have in place, and it's a journey, and so much of it is like you're learning along the way, and I think you just keep.
There's so much to unpack. Yeah.
Yeah, but so if I got to do it again, I was like, oh, if I got to do it again at 48, which, that's not really something that's I'm looking for, but I would do it your way. And that's I was like, I would do it her way. You know, the straw man, I don't know that much about that, but it came up years ago. All of a sudden you just start awakening, right? You start learning more and more.
Mm-hmm.
So I became a doula,
Mm-hmm.
and then I found myself in this with this couple from Africa in the hospital here who could not speak English. I was a volunteer situation where um, I was working with the family to acquire hours, and before she could even like walk through the door, they're signing her for cesarean, right? Not really, but essentially.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I knew where it was going. We knew she had a baby back home she had to leave behind, who she birthed in a
Oh.
field, right? 8 pounds, no problem. But here
Mm-hmm.
it ended up, it was one intervention after the next. She had no idea what a cesarean was. It was heartbreaking. I had to step away because Noah was like 18 months at the time. I was like, this is too much. This is too hard.
Oh, yeah.
Here I've got a little guy at home. I get, I'm trying to be an advocate for this couple, and they don't understand. I mean, it's very limited English, and here we are. And, it ends in a, cesarean birth, emergency cesarean with a 5-pound baby.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just like, just, So then you tackle on you tack on finding out that they're selling placentas and foreskin and then I started digging even deeper on my own and I read books such as I want to say Hensey Goer's Gentle Guide to Birthing. I'm not sure if you're familiar, but so that's when I start
Mm-hmm.
to learn, okay, she talks about how hospitals have quotas to meet and how if you were in Europe, they would give you 72 hours, I want to say, before they would induce you if after your water breaks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, oh, okay. So then even just in the last year, as long as someone's not doing a vaginal exam and sticking their fingers up there to check your cervix for dilation, there's no added real risk for
Mm-hmm.
bacteria,
Mm-hmm.
right? Or infection. And it's
Right.
when you think about it all, it feels like a complete no-brainer. And I'm sad. I'm sad, I guess, for women
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well, I
and
love
and, and the culture and the collective, but
yeah.
especially for women. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I love where I mean, you began kind of um that kind of, I don't know, tangent. I don't know what to call it, but like where you began is like it's hard that so many women, it's like in hindsight, are learning this. And I always like to let people know that there is not a point at any point that you can't heal. Sometimes just bringing it to consciousness and awareness because you can't fault yourself for what you didn't know. And also, we've been groomed our entire lives to walk this path. Okay. So we can't be upset when we walk the path, the only path we were taught. So just sometimes, again, I feel like bringing it to consciousness, that's when the spell is broken. And of course, there is going to be a journey of discovery and guilt and maybe some sort of like, I don't know, sadness. I feel like it's part of that journey of, and then moving beyond it to realizing that, I mean, we are so resilient. We are so powerful. We could even like understand really who we are. The fact that we are living, breathing, like energetic beings, despite how they poison our food, the water, our brains, how they sabotage birth, and the fact that we are still here the way we are, it says so much. So yeah, I always want to give like a hug to all the mamas too that look back and they're like, dang, I wish I would have done something different. But the fact that you know now and that seed is there, that's already the journey of healing.
Yeah, and I know
And,
I met this guy. He said he could look back at different experiences in his life if it even if it was through a photograph, that if he could go back and just sit with that and
mm,
almost like visualize a different experience in that moment, a different reaction, that I agree that we are that powerful and we can heal despite, and move forward. But I do think for me, it was like, there's that sadness, there's that frustration, there's that feeling of betrayal.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm,
that one still comes up. I'm like, why? Why is this happening? Why are we lied to in so many ways? It's like over and over and over again. And every time I listen to one of Alex Zach's episodes, I'm like, oh my gosh, this is one more place we've been lied to.
Yeah.
This is one more area, like, and it becomes a little bit overwhelming. But it's also, so I don't like to, I don't, I dug so deep for a while there. And then, I was ready for the apocalypse and this and that. I was ready. And I'm like, okay. Then my mom was like, Elizabeth, you really want to live in a world where it's going to be that dark and bad? Just go into the garage and turn your car on. And there was this huge sense of peace for me in that moment when she said
Uh,
that. I was like, you know
mhm,
what? You're right. I could check out. I could check out because I'm not going to fall prey to this system, right? Or whatever. But
mhm,
that's changed. Then COVID hit, and I was like, okay, I better get my stuff again. My Gamma seal lids for my buckets in case. Just so I've got it all ready to go, just in case. Of course, here we are, 5 years on the other side of that, or 6 years, and on the other side of that, and we survived. And I never really stopped living my life all during the entire thing. We started a group. We free ourselves. We um, stood in the streets to protest and stand up for vaccine, freedom, health freedom, and we walked the grocery stores mask free. So, like I know that, and even just the spiritual journey, leaving. I grew up Methodist, and I felt like we were kind of liberal, or at least my parents were a little bit more open-minded, but we still were built with, we were kind of conditioned in this, the blueprint most people get, right? You
mm.
grow up, you get married, you have kids, you buy your house, you start paying taxes, you get a job, 9 to 5, you go to college, like all the things. And um, I think it's been hard for my kids personally for uh, trying to embrace how far outside of the box that they feel I have lived
Mm.
over the last
Mhm.
24 years. We homeschooled, we had chickens in our backyard. I was milling my own flour. Like, they're like, why can't we just be normal? I'm like,
Wow.
yeah.
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 Mm.
So I know that, so okay, so can you explain? I know so many probably of the conversations you have are similar, but for my audience who is not familiar maybe with your work, can you describe this lotus birth? Because it's so
Yeah.
incredibly sacred, and I feel like we've lost the sacredness in birth. It just makes me sad. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of the things. There's many emotions that come up for me when I think about how far detached we are from what birth really should be and,
Yeah.
and could
Yeah.
look like for women.
Yeah. Well, I will say with my first baby, when I started connecting with him and saying, just show me the birth that you need. Because I mean, clearly this hospital route isn't what it is. And as he kind of started showing me what he needed, I kept coming back to how did our pristine ancient ancestors live? Okay. How did they birth their babies? How did they live? How did they, and I'm not talking about this, I want to say this fake history that we've been taught of, we're these evolved beings from monkeys or cavemen, whatever. I believe we had ancestors that were so connected to the earth, to source, to the rhythms of life. They were the ones that knew, and that lives in my DNA. So I thought, connect to that. So I was just thinking, okay, if I were the first human being to get pregnant on the earth, okay, and this baby chose me, and I grew this baby in trust, knowing, just this was how it was meant to be. Eventually rushes come, eventually the baby comes out, and just thinking, oh my gosh, this is always how it was supposed to be. Moments later the placenta comes out. Would I think, oh my gosh, everything was perfect until this moment? Now this moment I need to intervene and start cutting. Would I think that, or would I just let things be, and then a few days later the placenta naturally falls off, and would I think, oh my gosh, it was always meant to be that way? So that's when that's what lotus birth is. Lotus birth is essentially leaving the umbilical cord and the placenta attached to baby until it naturally falls off, which there's so many, such a beautiful practice. I can't even explain it. It's hard to say in words because it's such an experience that's felt more than expressed through words. But of course, a lot of people know about, delayed cord clamping, and all the benefits of delayed cord clamping are, the baby receives all of their blood, all the stem cells, all the oxygen, because a third of that is still on the placenta, right? So not only does baby receive all of physically what's rightfully theirs, there's this energetic component of, I mean, it goes pretty deep in a lot of different areas of a lot of ancient cultures believe that this placenta is essentially kind of the spirit guide of the baby. They guide the baby, they're born together in this earth. And although the placenta dies physically, it's kind of an energetic, invisible, what's the word, kind of companion throughout life. And then also the companion that helps them transition on the other side too. So it kind of removes this fear of what's beyond the veil. You're always have this advocate that's with you always. So, and most important to me was this concept, I think, of sovereignty, of my baby gets to choose when they're ready to fully transition earthside. And I will say for sure, feeling that moment, like when your baby's still attached to that placenta, I still felt like we weren't on earth yet. And it's like the moment that like placenta pops off, it's like, oh my gosh, our feet landed on the earth. Like we both transitioned. So that their choice of like, I get to choose when I'm ready to fully transition and I get to support him doing that is like the most beautiful, beautiful practice. So, and I feel like I can see that in so many ways. I did that with both my babies, definitely intend to do it with my third. But yeah, just seeing how they have that imprint of sovereignty, that they get to choose. There is no fear of like, I mean, so many different things. Also, I feel like there's a lot of, they definitely got all their stem cells, all the things that they are very active, healthy babies that have never needed doctors. There's so many different things and benefits that I feel like come from it. It's beautiful.
So, okay, so you talk about you decided, I don't know if it was a conscious decision, maybe it just came to you, and you grew up in a religious background. When you decided, like, golly, of course, I remember talking to my baby and touching him and singing to him, both of them when they were in my belly. But
Hmm.
I don't know that I ever thought, let's like commune with him, with this
Yeah.
spirit in that way. And I would now, but that was finding yoga and learning how to meditate and sit in mindfulness and find the present moment, right?
Hmm.
What kind of inspired even that thought, do you think?
Oh, yeah, I love that question. Well, what really inspired it is I started in the hospital, like I said, with midwives in the hospital, and I went to 2 appointments. And to me, going to those appointments, it was very clear there was no difference than midwives in the hospital than it was OBs. And I
Mhm.
remember leaving to lunch and having lunch with my husband right after that second appointment and saying, because okay, so this was like a group of 7 midwives, I guess, and it was like whoever you end up in labor with, whoever's on call, that's who it is. And the first 2 women I met, I told my husband, I was like, gosh, if that's the one I'm in labor with, I'm going to be really disappointed. And those words just like struck me because I've spent my whole life, I feel like, disappointing myself in so many different ways, but finally having this baby choose me, I was like, I don't have any wiggle room anymore to disappoint. There is no disappointment. And if I know that right now, I need to make a different choice. But what? I like didn't know what that other option was. I just knew I didn't know this. So that's kind of when I want to say I created this like ritual of every day I stood in the shower and I just put my hands on my belly and I would say, baby, I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. So I'm going to need you to guide me. So I would put that out there every single day, and I would just know. And of course, there's time between the answer. I wasn't just like given like, you need to have this baby here. Like that wasn't ever how it was for me. It was like I would just put it out there, and over time, when the answers would flow through, whether it would be a random post I saw on an Instagram page that was like, oh, that's what you were looking for, or a random person that would walk in my room, or at the grocery store that, you know, had a connection to a midwife or something. The resonance, the moment I heard it, I was like, okay, you're like, I was just following the breadcrumbs, I want to say. So that was really kind of all I had to grasp on at that moment was I know what I don't want, but I don't know what I do. So guide me to that. And just slowly the pieces started. I don't know. I want to say I followed the omens. If you've ever read the Alchemist,
Oh, I love The Alchemist.
that's kind of how I felt. I was just kind of like picking up, follow the omens, follow the breadcrumbs, and then that's really how it worked for me. So yeah.
That book I've made both kids listen to. My son,
Mm.
when I still had him in the car for carpool, when he decided he really wanted to go to school so that he could do sports. We listened to that, and he read it. He happened to read it freshman year at his school. But I think I've read it 3 or 4 times. And then my
It's so
daughter,
good.
it is so good.
But really, like, I love parts of so much of that book, but like the things that really struck me where it's like the moment you know the resonance exists, it's like, that's the omen. Okay, just keep walking that way then. And then it'll guide you to the next one. And that's really, if I could have had like the whole plan out from the beginning, that would have been beautiful. But it very much was a journey of just like, follow the breadcrumbs, just keep picking up the next thing. And Lotus Birth, it was kind of weird how that kind of even came into my reality because something popped up on my Instagram and I didn't even like follow this person, which was like, so it was like one of those things where I'm like, how did this come up? And it was like, if you're pregnant, it was like very direct. If you're pregnant, you need to look up Janice Barcelo. I don't know if you've heard of Janice Barcelo's work, but she's pretty phenomenal. And look up Lotus Birth. So I kind of started going down some of those rabbit holes of Janice is very much, she has a book called, um, gosh, what it is, something like the dark side of modern medicine or something like that. And it really uncovers like the truth about birth trauma, all that stuff. And it's exactly what I needed to learn and kind of uncover, realizing my own imprints and how my imprints were then going to create imprints on him if I didn't bring them to consciousness. Because it's like, if we're born in a hospital, we're more likely to have birth in a hospital. So it's all those different things that kind of come up that allow you to recognize it and then break the chain. So anyway, those are things that I was guided to just by, I want to say, putting it out there, just putting the question out there and knowing eventually it would come to me in the right way, however that showed up.
Yeah, I love, it takes a lot of faith and surrender really to trusting, that those answers will arrive. Yesterday, when I was listening to the episode with the midwitch, I didn't catch her name. I just popped up in my YouTube,
Veda.
and
Yeah.
you, you said it was difficult to find information about the lotus birth.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very, very difficult. It's something simple as like use herbs and salts. And so I kind of just like got creative. And as you do it, it was pretty simple. Really dressing it with herbs and salts, kind of changing out pads over. And it only was like 2.5, 3 days that it came off. So it's a short snippet in time, really. I
Mhm.
think a lot of people, it sounds so overwhelming where you're like, oh my gosh, what do you do with this placenta? But you do it. It really is just so simple. And that's also why I like kind of created kits. I started hand sewing kits and creating kits just to make it even more simple because something that seems inconvenient, I guess I've kind of created convenience out of. But yeah, it was like very, very, very difficult to find any information on how you do it. I'm like YouTubing. I'm like, have other people done this? I even asked my midwife at the time too. She's like, yeah, we've all heard about it, but no, we've never known someone to actually do it. So I kind of got to be the experiment.
Did you have to go to a library and like go through microfiche? Like, what did you have to like? Where did you finally ultimately land to like gather? Because I don't know. To me, right now, like I'm starting to wonder, like even with like AI and everything, at some point we're only going to have information they want us to have, right?
Right.
And
Really all finding are like old kind of textbooks more on like ancient beliefs and ancient practices.
hmm
So it wasn't like someone could tell me this is how you do it and show me
right.
how to do it. It was just kind of like reading this concept and like just kind of going with the concept. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but you know, because I like, you know, when you start digging and it's hard to find, it might bring up, right? Maybe, you know, maybe is this really right? Like, should I be doing this, right? If you can't find the
Hmm.
information and then building that confidence too. But again, it comes back to trust, surrender, and just really listening to our bodies. And yesterday I had another interview with a gal, actually, just even just recently, several, where how conditioned we are to not listen
Hmm. Hmm.
and to
Well, it was
trust that
really,
intuition.
yeah, it was really interesting to me too, because it's like when you just search lotus birth, the first things that pop up are like the dangers of lotus birth, right? It's going to be like your baby can get sepsis, infection, all these different things. And it's funny because I grew up like researching, learning to research, and never do they teach you. They teach you they teach you levels of research, right? Like you want to have the highest level of all these different things, but they never teach you look who funded the research. To me, I'm like that's where everyone should start. And you look at all the research that's funded that scares you and out of lotus birth saying it's dangerous are all funded by companies that make a lot of money by you giving away your placenta and your baby's blood. So to me, that was like the first tip off of like, okay, and at this point I've known now hundreds of families because like I said, I've created these lotus birth kits. Now I know lots of people because I'm sharing this information and the how-tos of lotus birth. I've never heard of someone have sepsis or have some infection in their baby by doing a lotus birth. So it's like a lot of this fear they've created around it or makes a lot of money for people.
So what made you dig into what they were doing, the placentas and the foreskin? I mean, I never even really thought about it. You know, you just kind of go in blind. And of course, you know, my kid's father cut my sons in the hospital, and then with my daughters, we let the blood pulse until, you know, the blood was, but I didn't know anything else beyond that. We kept the placenta for a long time. I didn't know what I was going to do with it. And then we had a terrible windstorm. The power was out for 8 days, and I lost it because everything thawed and things were smelling and
Mm.
you know, so it didn't get to me the necessary like sacred thank you or goodbye. I'm gonna have to go back, you know, as I mentioned, and just like thank it for all of
Honor it.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like I didn't even think about that. Like, you know, all these other things and things they put into vaccines and ingredients, and I never thought about it.
Yeah. Well, what got me really thinking about kind of like all the things is going through this kind of experiment of experiencing my own birth, which kind of sounds weird. But you start realizing the way we were conceived, gestated, and birthed really kind of sets the blueprint of our lives and the ways that we, how we live our lives. For me, realizing too, like I was conceived, I was this like, oh shoot, my parents weren't ready for me kind of baby. So I had that imprint. I'm like, I see in different ways in my life that I've been or created this belief or scenario of being unwanted or unloved or whatever, which, for my first baby, of course, I passed that down where I was like, oh, surprise, I didn't expect to get pregnant. And then, going through those moments of like, recognizing that's my imprint and baby that has everything to do with me and nothing to do with you, and now I get to bring that to consciousness. So just realizing again the way we were conceived, how we were gestated, all those emotions, all those feelings, the relationship our parents had while we were gestated and birthed, if we were induced, that imprint of kids that feel like they're being pushed into something they're not ready to, and how that happens in life a thousand different ways.
Mhm.
So I kind of had this experiment, which I thought was really kind of interesting with my mom, where I was like, I realized I didn't even know my own birth story. So I asked my mom, I was like, Mom, tell me about my birth story. And she was like, oh, it was beautiful. We had you in the hospital, but you came out, they put you on my chest, we breastfed, it was great. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's kind of weird. Cause that's like, when I think back, like that doesn't feel right to me, but okay. So I ended up kind of doing like a meditation on my own of like, hey, go back. Because it's hard because we don't have words for what happened when we're babies, but you can kind of feel and experience if you really kind of let yourself go there. What do you believe happened? It felt very traumatic to me. It literally felt like being pulled out, induced, whisked away. It felt very traumatic as I was kind of letting myself go there. And then it was interesting that a few weeks later, my mom calls me and she's like, hey, since you asked me about your birth, I actually pulled out my journals and I wanted to read to you what happened. And it's so interesting that it was just the way I had experienced. And she had kind of created this trauma, um, I don't know, protected her own mind in the trauma of her baby because I had meconium. They cut me, they whisked me away. I was gone for a while before I came back, and it was like, oh my gosh, that crazy that the way I thought it happened did. And it was one of those things too, this like feeling of being cut,
Mm.
pulled away. Like that felt visceral in my body. So thinking of doing that to my baby too was like, I couldn't do that. So I guess that kind of is one of those things that really brought it up for me. I will definitely also say I feel like the concept of baby staying connected to placenta is them staying connected to their intuition. And we have these meridian circuits in our bodies that go through the placenta, and that is something that gets cut. Again, not something we can't heal, but it is something that we are disrupting. It's also connection from mother to baby. I will say I grew up disconnected to my mother, and I feel like all these things kind of showed up in my life very apparent, and other reasons why I was like, hey, this is one of those other reasons why I'm feeling really called to keep that connection, because I very much was disconnected. So yeah, I
Yeah, I
think just the
know.
res like that's the thing. Yes.
Yeah, I think it was upon listening to your conversation with Kelly that I went and asked my mom. I'm not talking. She wouldn't go there. She wasn't
Mm,
going there. She was not going to talk about it. And all I know is that at birth, she had a fever. Of course, we know that had they let me, go to her, probably both would have been better, right? But
mm,
instead, they took me from her, and I don't think I was with her for 24 or 36 hours. So, they handed me to my dad and they gave me sugar water
mm. Wow.
for like 36 hours.
Wow.
And I definitely have, you know, I don't want to say, but here you've been, I've had an abandonment wound, no doubt, right? And I'm like, holy fuck, this goes way back. This goes back further than I thought. And, I guess it's like I guess, and like, okay, my son and his daughter, my daughter-in-law are having a baby in October. And
Mm,
as this mother who wished I had all of this information before, you just want to teach. You want to make it easier for them so they don't uh, undergo necessarily some of the same experiences, right? And same emotions, challenges, obstacles. And I know that I deeply believe we choose our parents and for, for the journey and the growth of the soul, of our soul. Um, that uh, where was I going? Oh my goodness. I'm just trying to think. What was I talking about?
really, how, I mean, it sounded to me like you're going, that's like you'd love to give all this information to
Yeah,
someone.
yeah, it's their journey, right? And sometimes it's like
Mhm.
no matter how much information you share, right? They have to seek it out. It's like trying to lead a horse to water, but ultimately they have to want it.
Mhm.
And, but like I read, I think it's Penny Simpkins' book on birth. I forget the name of it. I don't know if it's The Birth Partner, but she talks about how women almost always can describe their birth story to a T because it's such a powerful day. Like
Mhm.
with in almost full detail, usually.
Mhm.
It sounds like, in a sense, your mom kind of dissociated, maybe, or just like created and I
For
think that.
sure. I mean, I think it was very traumatic that it was like her way of, you know, her trauma association, of
Yeah, of trying to
protecting
like,
yourself.
yeah. And I definitely can see that as a possibility. And so, just wanting to be able to impart this wisdom to other women who are seeking something similar. I mean, like when I hear like different feelings come up, grief, sadness, frustration, this disconnection from mother. I mean, to me it all like when I hear this, it's like when something when I it's just in your bones. I don't know
Hmm.
what else to say. I feel it in my bones. Last night, I've taken a part-time doula, a postpartum doula part-time job.
Oh,
Okay.
awesome. Love that.
And it's unique, right? It's overnight. And what I would not do to go back for 1 hour with each of my children, skin to skin, and nurse those two babies now that they're
Mm.
grown, right? And to
Hmm.
think that this mother and father don't want to be bothered at all.
Mm.
Now, they'll probably never listen to this. If they do, maybe they'll gain some insight. But guys, I just
Mm.
met them. Like last night was my first night, and I, I, you know, I walk in the door, they've got the formula ready to go. It's like a Keurig. I'm thinking about how the water's in plastic, it's going through tubes, it's being imprinted with this water that's been in plastic, that's going through tubes, it's going to a plastic bottle that is formula, and the baby is in a bed
Mm.
with a
Feel
camera over
like
it
with that,
down
yeah.
the hall, camera in this thing called a snoo that shakes
Mm.
and is electric and vibrates. Have you seen this thing? And it
I've
makes
heard of it. Yeah.
these whooshing sounds, like the womb. And the baby goes in like almost in a straitjacket, right? I get the swaddle, I understand. And then this particular swaddle is clipped in the mattress, in the bed.
Oh,
There's hooks.
wow.
There are hooks.
Wow. Feel like you are
Okay.
not leaving.
And and the baby has on a little device on her ankle that tracks her vitals.
Mm. I've
And
heard it call it. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. I was I I don't know what I was thinking. I'm going to keep going, but it was difficult. I think you're frozen. Oh no, you're frozen. There you are. It
Yeah.
there you are.
Oh,
Did
you're
you
back.
say something?
No, you were just saying the outlet and then it kind of cut out for a little bit.
So you've heard of
Yeah.
this. I didn't know what it was. And I
Oh,
just,
yeah.
I'm like, okay, if you nursed her and she was in your bed and she just found your breast, nobody's losing sleep, nobody's really crying, everybody's getting nourished, and you would know her vitals. You would know if she was warm. You would be
Yep.
bonding. You would be receiving this oxytocin as with the baby. She would be developmentally, like getting what she needs, the amount of sucking, just how perfect breastfeeding is, and that women are, I'm not going to knock it, but I would be lying if I didn't have some judgment around it, are choosing to like miss out on what a creator has designed us to do.
Hmm. Well, in so many ways, you realize how many, all these, it's inconvenient. Babies are so inconvenient. So we need to create all these conveniences of bottles, the snooze, like you said, these things that allow us to make convenience out of babies. But nothing about breast. I mean, it's funny because they say breastfeeding's inconvenient. I'm like, it is so convenient to never have to pack a bottle and to like know that I have food for my baby anywhere I go. Actually, that's pretty convenient to me, but I don't know. It is crazy because to me, yes, I get so much sleep co-sleeping with my baby and just breastfeeding in bed.
I
I get the
know.
most. I can't imagine getting up out of bed, walking down the hall to a crying baby, or actually having to hire someone else to do that. I don't know. That's
I, I
yeah.
I know. And we were at Costco in line the other day and getting a few things at the grocery store. And I just, breastfeeding was such, it was a non-negotiable. It was easy with my son. And I didn't understand why anybody wouldn't do it. And with my daughter, I had, bleeding nipples, mastitis, thrush, you name it. It was there. I had to use nipple shields. And then I was afraid of nipple confusion and like all this wild, crazy stress of that. And then it all worked out. She ended up with a lisp, which caused part of the latch problem, but I sought out the
Mm-hmm.
lactation consultant. But luckily with my son, I gave it the 6 weeks, this lactation consultant. She goes, just give, because I was struggling with milk supply. And she's like, just give it 6 weeks. It's all going to iron itself out. I'm like, okay. So, I'm like getting through, but literally, I mean, my nipples would have had been falling off and before I gave up on
Yes.
breastfeeding. I mean, that's, how passionate I am about the importance of and to just I guess I just am I guess I find myself confused in how again we've been so bamboozled and women, oh, here we are at Costco. I'm like, well, I didn't have any no shame. Sure, if I'd had a baby and he started crying or I'd just pick him up. We'd be standing in line nursing. Like it was no big deal for me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And
Mm-hmm.
then you've got, women who are afraid. They've got to make sure, and that's fine. I understand some people want to be covered up, but like there is no shame in this game of like nursing and nurturing and nourishing a baby.
Mm-hmm. And how different would the world be if there were more of that out there? So women weren't afraid.
Yeah. And so,
Because
it's
that,
like, well, so I guess it's, I guess that's just, it's just feel like I don't even know, not sure, but you're living this just such, intuitive led, intentional life. And I really admire you for it. I think it's amazing. And I love that you're teaching other women and maybe leading them to this space where it might make it a little bit easier for them to make similar choices.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that so much. It's interesting because like you were saying, like you were hell bent on breastfeeding your baby. I felt that very same way. And it's so interesting how our own life experience kind of create that value. Where for me, what's actually really interesting is I was actually born with an umbilical hernia. So which very much makes sense to me. I'm like the concept of the placenta, the baby, the disconnection, how I really laid an imprint in me in that struggle where I had to have surgery when I was 2 because of it, that it very much that was my value of I want to stay connected, and that was my drive. And it is really interesting, like I said, when other women are clearly other mothers and fathers out there feeling that too, and they're being called to the information. So I'm grateful that it's, I don't know, resonating with other people.
Well, and then I mean, so okay, I think about that. So you had this surgery at 2,
Mm-hmm.
right? And they're cutting into the fascia, right, around that area.
Mm-hmm.
So, disrupting sort of the communication around that, and so it's interesting that you had this umbilical. I mean, for me, it makes perfect sense. Like it all comes full circle, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And that you're so passionate about, the lotus birth and keeping the connection. And uh, yeah, yeah. We were, oh, I was for a minute there, I was going to this chant on a regular basis. And this particular, I just find things kind of just interesting. This particular gentleman had really started studying Lou Gehrig's for whatever reason. And interestingly enough, he ended up he ended up with Lou Gehrig's towards the end. And
Oh
like, I
wow.
think about this, okay, like, why is that? Was he so focused? Was like, because did he bring it on, right? Did he imprint that because he was studying it? Like you have to
Mm,
wonder, right? Because if we know
mm,
that water holds memory in our body, we have this easy
mm.
water and we've got all the, the fascias of water and it's piezoelectric and all this, like we really have to be cautious.
Yeah, we are creators.
We are creators
Master creators.
and and so, you know, anyway. So like maybe right? Subconsciously you were creating this for exactly this,
Yep.
right? Experience, right?
Yep.
Who knows? So, okay, so I want to jump ahead to the birth certificate because I do remember having a home birth and like I didn't even think about it, but they did. They gave me the 5 days. You got to go down here. I had a direct entry midwife. When I had her, it was against the law for my midwife to practice in Kentucky. You could have a baby anywhere, right? Because they can't stop a woman having a baby anywhere. But I could not hire midwives. So to go in, tell them you had a baby at home. Basically, you're telling them you had a free birth, essentially,
Mm.
unassisted, and get your birth certificate. And so that's what I did. Needless to say, they totally messed it up. Wrong county, wrong name. I don't even know how they
Oh
did that because
no.
I still had the correct paperwork with
Uh-huh.
what I had filled out. I'm like, okay, I don't know how this happened. So we ended up having to fix all of that later. But what, what how does I guess like I think okay when I bring it up with people the idea of somebody not having a birth certificate or
Pretty
traditional
wild.
is pretty wild.
Yep.
How are they going to live? How are they going to get a job? How are they going to do all of these things?
Hmm.
So what can you share about that?
Well, I would say first, I had all those same feelings and thoughts that it was like it sounded crazy to me at first too. So, and then you do also realize how much of that is conditioning and thinking like this is the only way to operate. Like, how in the world are you going to operate? So when my baby was, and I will say the first real feeling came to me was when it was time to sign my first baby's birth certificate. I was like, I don't have the answers, but all I know is this, I have knots in my stomach about it.
Mm,
Don't really know why. I filled out all the information. I never ended up like signing it because that like felt better for me for whatever reason. But I mean, as later I've learned studying law, which I never thought this road would lead me down, is that acquiescence is consent. So I did consent. Birth certificate was created. And so really all I had to go off was it felt so gross. That's all I knew. So when my next baby came, and luckily my first baby, like I had unpacked birth, the ancestral stuff, like I had so much unpacked with my first that my second one was like, okay, it's a birth certificate time. I need to be born this way. I need to be born free. And so I was like, okay, of course, all the fears like start coming up because like my job, I felt as a mother was to give him all the opportunities. I didn't want to be, making this decision that was going to inhibit him in any way, shape, or form. If he wanted to go to college, I wanted to let him do that. If he wanted to not go to college and be an entrepreneur, I wanted to let him do that, work corporate, well, like whatever it was. And so as I started kind of going down the rabbit hole, I feel like I was guided the same way with my second as I was with my first, where I was like, okay, if this is a way, then show me what that means. Show me what that looks like. And so breadcrumbs started coming to me. I got a law dictionary. Okay. You start reading definitions of legalese and realizing that their whole world of the legal world is very different than what we are taught. We've been taught that there's one way to operate with the birth certificate, to go to school, to get a job, all these different things. And I actually started realizing that if you can get a passport, then that's actually opens the key. They can go to school, they can get a job, they can travel, they can get a bank account, all the different things with the passport. And I was like, okay, well, now I need to learn how to get a passport without the birth certificate. And lo and behold, there is a whole legal way to do that as well. So I discovered that. And that's why I show other families, how to do this, realizing that the birth certificate is a contract. We are contracting our kids. And long story short, this is, a lot of a lot of time in self-discovery. I actually have a whole series that I have on my website that kind of takes you down the rabbit hole. But to kind of give you the short snippet is essentially a birth certificate is that contract that makes us human collateral backing the national debt. So, and it's based on what our future labor is going to be in taxes. That's the reason why they so badly want to get every baby registered. And I started thinking, like when were birth certificates standard in all 50 states? That wasn't until 1933, which is really not that long ago. You know what I mean? Like when you start thinking that's like less than 100 years ago, like how in the world did we function without birth certificates? And our ancestors, they all kept records. They kept records in our family Bibles. They had religious records. They just kept records that they passed down from generation to generation. And that's actually what the birth certificate has tried to replace. So as I just started learning and researching, I realized that a birth certificate is very modern. And what you can do is still keep records, legal definitions between registering, which is handing over title, versus recording, which is what we all think or are taught the birth certificate is. We can still record within our own family records, and that actually is still holds true today. Governments honor it. They yeah, we can create passports and things like that through our records.
And
It's
so
pretty amazing.
with those records, you could get a passport. So and so your son with who was born free
Mm-hmm.
or could go on to become an adult, get a job just like anybody else without this birth certificate. He would never really actually need to go get a birth certificate.
Yes. And the beautiful thing about it is with all those records and his passport, if he ever wants to get a birth certificate, he can make that choice. I
Right.
actually started realizing like if I were to just get the birth certificate like I did with my first, I'm actually taking that choice away. So to me, it like was this beautiful opportunity to really give him opportunity to make that choice if he chose to, because I set him up in a way. And a lot of people too, they hear this like, no birth certificate. How is this going to happen? How are they going to function? Because we've all heard those like horror stories of knowing so and so's cousin, our cousin's uncle's coworker or whatever that like didn't get a birth certificate and they couldn't do anything. The worst thing you can do is have a baby and do nothing. That really will hinder them in life. But if you are very intentional about it, you do create these lawful records, you do get them the passport, then they really can do whatever they want. And again, like I said, if that's choosing to get a birth certificate, choosing then to use that to get a social, they can do all that. But when they're aware and can consciously make that choice, if that's what they choose to, you help them do that. Simple as that.
Now, yesterday you also spoke of marriage, and
Hmm.
I have never been married because I didn't
Hmm.
want the government involved. And I can't even remember where I read what. It wasn't even my, I'm like, I think we've been sold a bill of goods on you got to get married, you get these benefits, this, that, and the other. And I'll read something, it makes sense. And then I'm just like, and then I'll just kind of like, well, I'm never doing that, right?
Yeah.
But I do very much believe in a sacred union. And, I love that. I guess I just love learning this, that there's another way around this, that you
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
that you can create this record, your own personal record
Hmm.
in a family Bible, and it holds up as what would it, I mean, I guess you hate to say the word law, but that's probably not the correct word. Would you say
Well,
that?
there's lawful and there's legal, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Law actually stands for land, air, water, different jurisdictions. So it gets pretty deep into like what jurisdiction are you under, which jurisdiction really essentially is everything. But yeah, it's like the moment you go legal, you're in the law of commerce, the law of water. That's why, I mean, if I knew this 10 years ago when I got married, I love that you intuitively knew that. I intuitively did not know this at the time, but yeah, all a marriage license is registering your marriage. You're creating a contract with the state. You're inviting them as a party in your contract, simply. And that's why they get to decide if you choose to separate, how you separate your assets, because they're a party in your contract.
Yeah, it's oh gosh, it's just crazy. It just
It is crazy.
makes me bananas that, this information isn't one of the thing, and this is what I keep telling my son and his wife, like I just want you to be informed. I want you to make an informed decision. And too often, uh, all the information isn't shared.
Mm,
So more often than not, in so many cases, people are making an uninformed decision because they aren't really getting all the
yeah.
information, right? We have to go out there and do that research for ourselves, be our own advocates, and then make whatever decision you want, right? I
Yeah.
completely honor that. Whatever you
Yeah.
want, whatever feels right for you. But my frustration lies in the fact that too often we don't get all the information. And
Mhm. Well,
um,
one, it's like we're taught there's only one way. There's that. And then two, we're actually also incentivized to walk that way. And you start realizing too, when they have to incentivize you to do something, there's always a catch. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Back in COVID days, they were like incentivizing weird stuff to get the shot, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
that was a flag for a lot of us. We're like, oh, really? You're going to get a free Wendy's Frosty if you go get a jab? Like, oh, red flag. To me, it's like if you get incentivized, their incentives are a tax write off. Okay. Same with our children. If they didn't incentivize you in some way, would you register your kid?
Right. Of course
But
not.
some
Probably
for
not.
some people that incentive is worth it. And they're willing to contract their child or contract their marriage for a write-off. And taxes, that's a whole other conversation in itself, but they incentivize you, government benefits, whatever it is, that it's like you have to realize these benefits are not free.
Mm-mm.
If it requires you to do something first, it's not a free benefit. So only you get to decide whether that benefit is really worth the cost.
So now your kiddos are little.
Yeah.
Do you think now will you be homeschooling? Will you be taking on,
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yep. Yep.
I loved it. I mean, I just yeah, that was another area I was just like, this doesn't make sense to me. I felt and I don't think my son and I had a little argument back in, I don't know, early spring. And it was interesting because a gal who was at Confluence and is learning to mind read with the blindfold,
Mm-hmm.
and she was down in Austin for a workshop down there, and she had suggested that my she just kept getting that Noah and Jessica were gonna have a little girl,
Mm-hmm.
and well, it's a little boy.
Oh.
And so when he called me to tell me this, he was like, "See, Mom, your shrink was wrong." I was like, "Well, first of all, she's not a shrink. She's a nurse, and
Mm.
she runs a nonprofit therapeutic preschool here for autistic children. And she went and, worked on a mediumship so she could better communicate with them, after the telepathy, all this stuff.
Mm.
And so we had this little argument, and I forget what I was about to say about that. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Oh, um, something about was it with the title of my name? I don't know. Oh, yeah, I can't remember. Drawn a blank. I don't remember where
Oh,
I was going with that, um, but yeah, I was just trying to point out something to him, and he's just yeah. So anyway, it's just different. I can't remember. Cannot
yeah. Yeah.
but
Well, yeah. And that is kind of interesting too. Cause it's like, I mean, even I'm thinking about the gender of my baby. I'm like, for my second, every time I was like, are you a boy or a girl? And they kept saying, you're not supposed to know. So it is kind of funny too. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what
yeah,
this one is either. I know there is a girl. I don't know if it's this one or the next. So
yeah. Well,
sometimes the unknown is beautiful. So,
yeah, and that's the other thing. Like I didn't do. I found out about both children, and I was just, still kind of living in that world of curiosity. And I guess, I also was a little bit afraid because it was still, I didn't know a lot of women who had had home births, but I'd heard of it. And there's
mm,
uh, an OBGYN here who is um, runs a holistic um, women's health care
mm,
um, healing center, and she doesn't do any allopathic births now. It's all home births, and all
mm,
five of her babies were born at home. So, like
right.
I had known, that this was a thing, but I was still a little bit scared. So for that birth, I did seek an OB to work with congruently with the midwife, and he was the only one who was willing to work with me knowing the plan was a home birth.
Mm,
But 10 days
amazing.
before, he decided to do a vaginal exam where he stripped my membranes without permission, and I didn't go back. Mm,
Oh,
yeah.
oh, I'd be so mad.
Yeah, you just trust, and then I thought and then you realize just over and over again, I guess, that no, no, no. But anyway, I can't remember where I was going with that, but
Well,
you know,
before you were talking about homeschooling. So does that ring a bell on?
oh, let's see, homeschooling. Oh, he just wanted to be normal, and
Mm,
we I don't have any idea. Look, I'm 48. I'm not going to attach myself to the word perimenopause, but I promise you there are some shifts that take place and you forget your train of thought. You forget words. Again, not attaching myself to it, but I'm also not going to totally discount that, like, sometimes I'm not as on my game. Like, I'll have these brain farts, and like we were homeschooling, and well, just that I wasn't, like, it didn't feel right to me ever that I was supposed to wake up to an alarm. They didn't get to sleep in. I was going to take them to
mm,
this building, and they
yeah,
were going to
right
sit there
before
all day.
breakfast.
Like, what God would create a life like that? I just didn't get it.
Hmm.
I was like, no. So we slept in, we did all the things, we took it easy. We spent a lot of time outside. My kids, I found Waldorf education. So, and then I read a really awesome book called Better Late Than Early. And then, of course, John Taylor Gatto's work. But then he really wanted to go to school. He wanted to play sports so bad. He's a basketball coach. He's in a Division 1 assistant basketball coach in Texas now. And
Oh, wow.
like, I wasn't taking that out of him,
Hmm.
right? I mean,
Hmm.
that was, but when, and sometimes he's like, well, I was behind, when I went into school, I was behind. I'm like, I don't know, were you? Because you graduated from undergrad, college in 2 years, you got your master's in a year, and now you're working your dream job. I'm not sure that you were behind when you entered,
Yeah.
right?
You see
Like,
this now. Yeah.
so whatever, like you weren't like he kind of like he's more like me than he wants to admit,
Mm,
but in different ways, right?
mm.
Determined, right? And super passionate about what he's passionate about. But he did help me birth the name of my podcast because it's like, you're
Oh,
too, you can keep doing your own thing, but you can't follow me and I can't follow you. You're going to ruin my career. I'm like, maybe. I don't know if that's true. Like, I don't think like, you can do that. But he's like, but you can keep living unapologetically. I love you. You just keep living
oh,
your unapologetic life. And I was like, ding, ding, ding. I was like, that's it, because that's what I've done the whole time.
I love that. I
But
love that.
there's just so much more I wish I knew earlier. And I'm so glad you're doing this and forging the way for so many families because it's a family thing. And I just love it. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you for giving me a platform to talk because there's nothing more that I love to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, where can people find your work?
So I have a website, Veda, Veda, revival.com. I'm also most active on Instagram. I'm not really on a lot. I mean, I have a YouTube page, I guess, but I need some work to it. But I'm most active on Instagram. So I'm at veda.revival on Instagram. So that's where I post most of my content. So, but
Awesome.
yeah.
Awesome. And congratulations on your third. You said 30 weeks. Is that how I heard
Yep.
that? Okay.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
That's awesome. So that means what? That means like December, November?
August.
Oh, August.
August.
Okay. Oh,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, yeah. 30 weeks. Okay. Yeah. Because
Ish. So yeah, we'll see. We'll see anytime. But yeah, we're really excited.
yeah,
So
I bet. Well, thank you so much for joining me.
awesome. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.